Good evening. College football recap yesterday, October 7th, 2023. Start from the top. Actually, I'll start with Florida State and Iowa. Both on at the same time, I think, 2:30 games. Thought Florida State looked pretty good. Second quarter, they just decided to take off, and then Virginia Tech took the second half kickoff to the house. So all of a sudden, it was a 5-point game. They were up 22-0 after the first quarter, and actually could have been up more than that, but 22-0 after the first quarter, and then they're getting the ball back with 14 minutes in the third quarter, and it's 22-17. So, I mean, they're good enough they just can't let that happen if they want to win all their games, which is the goal, right? Win the championship. You got to clean that up. I think they'll be fine. Trey Benson, I wish, obviously he's going to get tired and he's got to take a break from here and there, but I wish Hill would be in there more as the backup than Tolofili. I've said that before, but nothing against Tolofili. I think you can use him in spurts there, even put him in the slot, but just keep Hill and Benson back there. They know how to run. They're very good running backs. Best offensive line we've had in a long time. So, I mean, I get it. You've got good receivers too, but we're not even looking to the middle of the field. The slot receivers, they are non-existent at this point. I just saw what is it? Willie Wright Jr. is leaving the program. One of the slot receivers that was highly recruited, regarded, etc. I mean, I'm not going to complain. Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson are unbelievable wide receivers right now. Just throw it up to them. It makes sense. But I think, again, if you want to win all the games, you got to have somebody like a Kenny Shaw or a Rashad Green, Kes McCorvey, Lavernius Coles. You got to have one of those guys as your slot receivers that's also a threat. Almost like Kayshawn or whatever the dude's name is at LSU, Butte or whatever. He plays that slot position pretty damn well. He doesn't have as good as hands as you might think, but he's still obviously very good. But they got to have a third wide receiver threat like that. The tight ends are there occasionally, Jaheim Bell. But the running game's there. I think if they add that to the offense, again, they're undefeated. They're looking good. So what do I know? Defense, they just got to stick with it. They got to keep as cheesy as it sounds, they got to keep the tenacity up for 60 minutes or whatever it takes, But 5-0, I think they have Syracuse at home next week. Then the week after that is Duke at home, I believe. But one game at a time. Syracuse is sneaky tough sometimes. I don't know who their quarterback is this year, but Florida State should be able to handle them. They don't go to the Dome and play well there very often. So I'm thankful it's at Doak. I think if I were a coach, I would just want to see them play 4 quarters and see what the result is. Their talent and their depth should take over in that game pretty quickly. So, if they're a Florida State team that wants to be regarded as a good one, a championship team, one of the better ones to come through that, the team that revived took them over the edge and took them to a championship because they have been pretty bad for 7, 8 years now, it seems like. But if they want to do that, um, they should be blowing Syracuse out by halftime. I don't think that's unreasonable. Um, and not trying to be arrogant. Maybe Syracuse gives them a game, but Florida State is the better team, better athletes, more depth. But we'll see. I mean, that's why they play the games. Who knows? Maybe Syracuse beats them around for 60 minutes. That's happened too. Um, but Syracuse Saturday at home. I like Florida State in that one. Iowa. I mean, I did watch the game. I did not watch it live because it was on Peacock. That was part of the billion-dollar deal or whatever the media rights deal was that the Big Ten got. Was they, when basketball season comes up, both men and women's, a bunch of their games are going to be on Peacock and other streaming platforms. That's what it's coming down to. You're going to basically pay for what you want to watch, and it will be right back up there with what DirecTV was charging people or is charging people still. Cable bills at the end there, because you're going to be want to watch. Oh, I can't miss this. I can't miss that, even though you never watch it. But when college football comes around, they're going to have half dozen, if not more, probably more. Probably closer to 10 different channels you'll have to buy, all at $9.99 a month, let's say. That's $100 right there. That's more than you're paying today. The writing's on the wall. It is what it is. So long-winded way to say I did not watch the game live. However, I was over at my folks' house this evening, and we did watch the game on the Big Ten Network, a game in 60 minutes, which is, I understand the advertisements and the revenue they get from that. I get it, right? It provides for the game that I enjoy and I'm sitting here talking about. But if you've ever watched a football game in 60 minutes and it shows you every play, it just cuts out the riffraff, the commercials, the, injured players, reviews, cuts all that out. The game is 60 minutes long. They've trimmed it to fit into an hour time slot. It's incredible. That's the way every game should be viewed, but obviously that's not how it is. Anyway, defense looked okay. They swarmed to the ball. Higgins is a player, but we already knew that. DeJean should have had 2 interceptions. He literally just let one go because it was 4th down. The ball was batted up, and he was sitting underneath the ball right there, and he let it go because he felt they could have got better field position based on the 4th down, stopping him there than him intercepting it. However, if he would have looked, which there's no time to, right? But he could have housed that thing. So he's a heck of a player, man. I wish he would stay next year. He's clearly not, but I wish they'd put him on offense. Hell, at this point, put him at quarterback and just short throws, option, But he's one of the best players we've had in a long time. We don't get players like that all the time. Everybody knows that, but he's fun to watch. Offensively, they look to be running the ball pretty good in times. They're just not consistent with it. And then the passing game is just atrocious. 6 for, I think 21 is what I heard, 114 yards or something gross like that. 1 touchdown to Eric All. See, that was a nice pitch and catch there. Nice route. I mean, all around it was good. The other throws that Deacon Hill had were just not even close. I mean, we're talking close to 10, maybe 12 yards overthrowing his receivers and tight ends on a consistent basis. Not even close on a lot of them. Um, you at least have to give your receivers and tight ends, running backs a chance to make a play. Um, you just need to get the ball to them. You need to deliver the ball to them and let them do their thing. They're the best athletes on the field, right? Your job is just to get the ball to them efficiently, effectively, um, consistently. And that wasn't there, obviously, with a 6 for 21 performance, but I, I would like to see him scramble more. I would like to see him just not be such a gunslinger. Same thing with Nate Stanley. I thought that was his biggest flaw, besides not being a gamer. I just didn't think he showed up in the big games that well. But he would rifle the ball on the crossing route, which I feel like was to Reganey. I feel like he's been there for close to 8 years at this point, but um, I thought that was Nate Stanley's one of his bigger flaws is he did no touch. He had no touch. It was just always, I mean, not so much touch on the short passes to the slot receivers and whatnot, but um, yeah, if Deacon Hill can figure that out, he obviously needs to work on his accuracy. I think some more game reps will help that. Some more practice time. Mm, they go up to Wisconsin this Saturday. Big game, always a rivalry. So they play us tough. It's usually low scoring. It's a real 12-round boxing match, and whoever comes out those last couple rounds usually wins it. But I mean, this year I think it's fair sides again. Wisconsin will obviously be favored, and um, Iowa will have to play really well to beat them. I think. I don't think Wisconsin's that great this year. I think Braylon Allen is really good. I've always thought that Mordecai quarterback was decent. Their defense is always good. I just don't think they're as good as Wisconsin has been in the past. I think they'll obviously get back to that. I like Fickle a lot. Um, I just don't think they're there this year. With that being said, I think they're still better than Iowa. Unfortunately, hurts my heart to say that. Um, I think Iowa can beat him on the right day. They just need to play A or better in every single category and position group, including quarterback, including offensive line, including receivers. So we'll see. But that's why they play the games, right? Hawkeyes, Badgers. It's always a fun one. I've been to a lot of games up there in Madison. I do like their stadium and their atmosphere around there. Yeah, it's a cool campus. They do not like each other. Like the right outside of the stadium is, I think, fraternity and sorority row, at least one of them. And it just, if you walk through there with Hawkeye gear on, prepare to be heckled, which is fair. You're being heckled by just shit faced Wisconsin Badger fans. You got to expect it. I mean, you're in their territory. It's all in good fun, I think. I mean, they're so drunk they may try and attack you as they do, but I think you're pretty much safe. Um, if you can, give it back to them, I think that's always a good thing. But if you want to put your head down and just walk to the game, that's cool too. Um, but it's a fun atmosphere. There's like a little garden or big gate, Civil War gate, I believe, um, that my cousin told me about. I've got some family up there, and um, yeah, man, I've been fucked up in Madison, Wisconsin a couple times in my life. Actually, more than a couple. Yeah, Madison, Wisconsin. I always enjoyed going to that place. We would go up there sometimes on spring break when I was little with my mom would drive and my grandma, my sister, my aunt, and my two little cousins. They were little at that time. Um, and we would have a good time. I enjoyed it up there. My aunt and uncle were some of the coolest, still are some of the coolest people I think I've ever met, ever will meet. I feel very lucky to be their nephew. Um, yeah, they're just good people. Their kids are good people. Their sons are good people. But we had a lot of fun when we went up there. A couple of times, my aunt was pregnant with my cousins who are now like mid 20s, late 20s. And we would go to the Wisconsin Iowa game, but we wouldn't know how to get down there because they lived in one of the suburbs out there. And uh, I remember one time she was like bedridden, but she ended up laying down in the trunk of the car that we had. I'm sure it was a Jeep Cherokee. Um, she was laying in the back, directing us where to go by the buildings that she saw. Because none of us, I mean, it was before cell phones. There was maps, but we didn't have one readily available. Um, so she's in the back telling us how to get there because whoever was driving wasn't going to the game. They were just dropping us off. And then the two of them went back. But I remember that pretty vividly. Usually pretty chilly when we play up there. It'll be October 14th. So it'll probably be pretty chilly, but that's the way it goes. That's the Four Seasons. I gotta find a hedge ball tree around here somewhere. I think I saw one driving back about 7-8 miles away from here. I might go check it out. I think I got to get a whole bunch of them for people. Got my first quote unquote podcast interview tomorrow with Jerry down the street. Nice fella at 10 a.m. So I got to do a little research to figure out his name, his last name, when they moved into the house. That's about it. I know he was in education at Smouse and Ruby Van Meter, which are two pretty bad schools. That's where all the troubled behavior disorder kids went and from the Des Moines district. So they were feeding in from all areas, and it still is, I'm sure. But so that's what I've got going on tomorrow for my Columbus Day / Indigenous People Day. I can never say that word right. That's what I got going on. Then I have a 4 p.m. My nephew's playing his last football game this year in 7th grade. Number 2, wide receiver, Brody G. Bro. Wednesday, I told my niece I would be at her track meet. Not track, cross country. It's the district meet, I guess. She's doing well. She's a freshman. But yeah. The other morning games, Boston College beat Army 27-24. LSU, Missouri, I watched a good deal of that game. LSU ended up winning 49-39. It was 42-39. Missouri had the ball, not much time, like 2 minutes, and they were on like their own 10. They were moving the ball pretty well. LSU's defense is not very good. Missouri's is even worse. Two really bad defenses and pretty darn good offenses. So a lot of points, but Missouri's quarterback threw just a boneheaded interception at the end. That was a pick six to make it a 10-point game, but it was really closer than it was. Missouri could have very easily won that game. They're tough. They're tough out. Missouri, LSU. I actually think Missouri, if they played 10 times, I think Missouri would beat them 6 times and lose 4. Ohio State beat Maryland. I watched a fair chunk of that one too. It was close in the first half, and then Maryland's quarterback threw a boneheaded pick six to Proctor on Ohio State, and that changed the entire game. Ended up 37-17, Ohio State winning there. The Red River rivalry. That first quarter of that game, I mean, it's been talked to death at this point, but the first corner of that game was wildness. Block punt. All kinds of things happen. I think a 4th down, they went for it. Texas did. There was a lot of stuff that happened. I'd have to watch it again. I apologize. I can't remember. I just remember thinking, holy man, a lot of stuff is happening in this 4th quarter. It was wild. Oklahoma wins it right at the end, 34-30 with a pass with just like 12 seconds left or something. Heck of a game, heck of an ending. Oklahoma came out swinging, which is what you have to do in that game and against Texas. Like they'll swing a couple of times, a couple of rounds, and then just like Texas, they'll fold. That's, in my opinion, that's been Texas's Achilles heel forever. I think the Vince Young USC gave that game away more than Vince Young won it. I know I'm going to be ostrated. No. Ostracized. Whatever. I'll be put over the coals for saying that. Because that last drive and that last play where Vince Young scored, I mean, credit where credit's due. He did very well there, but USC, there was 2 plays that stick out vividly. If they would have just gone with what they know, that last drive and that touchdown by Vince Young isn't even in the conversation because USC wins by 14-17 points. One was Reggie Bush running down the field with the ball and just decides to pitch the ball to a teammate trailing him. Reggie's flying down the field, just doesn't work out because there's a Texas player somewhat close by. Fumbles, Texas ends up getting the ball. I think if Reggie Bush scores there, they go up by 14 or 17, if I'm not mistaken. Texas gets the ball, and got momentum. I'm pretty sure they went down and scored a field goal, I believe. The other play was 4th and 1, and Pete Carroll has LenDale White in the backfield, but does not have the Heisman Trophy winner, best player in college football at the time, maybe ever, besides Bo Jackson. I mean, you can have that debate forever. Easily one of the best college football players ever to play the game. He's not in the game. He's on the sideline on a 4th and 1. If they get that, they can run out the clock. The game's over. You at least, even if you don't go to him, you have to at least have him in there as a decoy because he's going to draw so many eyes and so much attention that possibly it opens up whatever else you're trying to do to get that 4th and 1. But to have him on the sideline on 4th and 1, game in the balance, that was Pete Carroll's worst call, most idiotic decision besides the pass Russell Wilson in the Super Bowl that got picked off instead of running it to Marshawn Lynch. But I've always said that about Texas. You just got to keep hitting them, hit them with the body shots, hit them across the chin, and do it until you can't stand anymore. Eventually, they'll give up faster than you will. They don't like that. I thought Alabama, they've done that in the past, but Alabama just didn't have it this year. Just don't have that fire underneath them from what I've seen. But Oklahoma wins 34-30. Wisconsin beat Rutgers. I saw some highlights from that game. Wisconsin had a pick six right at the end of the first half where 95-yard pick six. So at that point, it was 10-0. Rutgers was either going to make it possibly 10-3 or 10-7 going into halftime and receiving the second half kickoff. But nope, this dude picks it off, takes it 95 yards to the house. Wisconsin ends up winning 24-13. Braylon Allen looked good in the highlights I saw. Again, they were highlights, so I didn't see the rest of it. Looks like he was 21 carries for 101 yards and 1 touchdown. So 5 yards a carry. Pretty damn good. Toledo beat UMass 41-24. I saw that 1-6 UMass is traveling to Penn State next Saturday to play them, which snooze fest, right? Mississippi State beat Western Michigan 41-28. Virginia beat William and Mary 27-13. Buffalo beat Central Michigan 37-13. NC State beat Marshall 48-41. A lot of points in that game. Marshall was previously undefeated. Texas San Antonio beat Temple 49-34. Northwestern edged one out against Howard 23-20. UCLA beat number 13 Washington State 25-17. It was Washington State's first loss. Eastern Michigan beat Ball State 24-10. Alabama beat Texas A&M 26-20. Bowling Green lost to Miami, Ohio 27-0. North Carolina slaughtered Syracuse 40-7. So Florida State doesn't play either North Carolina or Louisville in the regular season this year. They could very easily play one of those two teams in the championship. But those two teams scare me the most, besides Duke, obviously left on their schedule. But yeah, it was 27-0 at halftime in that North Carolina-Syracuse game. Drake May had 442 yards and 3 touchdowns. Damn. Ohio beat Kent State 42-17. Northern Illinois and Rocky Lombardi from right down the street beat Akron 55-14. Navy beat North Texas 27-24. Louisiana beat Texas State 34-30. Florida State beat Virginia Tech 39-17. Trey Benson had 11 carries for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a hell of a day for a running back. Clemson barely beat Wake Forest 17-12. Iowa beat Purdue 20-14. Troy beat Arkansas State 37-3. UAB handed it to South Florida 56-35. Kansas beat UCF 51-22. Florida beat Vanderbilt 38-14. UConn beat Rice 38-31. That was UConn's first win of the season. Florida Atlantic beat Tulsa 20-17. Colorado won on a very late field goal against 1-4 Arizona, now 1-5, 27-24. They kicked a field goal with 12 seconds left. Old Dominion beat Southern Miss 17-13. South Alabama slaughtered Louisiana Monroe 55-7. Georgia beat Kentucky 51-13. That was Kentucky's first loss of the year. Ole Miss beat Arkansas 27-20. Michigan beat down Minnesota 52-10. Louisville upset number 10 Notre Dame 33-20. They dominated that game. Hartman had 3 picks, I think. So there goes his Heisman. There goes Dave Portnoy's $250,000 legacy bet that he thought he was going to win. Not hating on the guy. I'm a big Dave Portnoy fan, but like, come on, bro. This is one of the most competitive years in Heisman Trophy competition, voting, whatever it is, that we've seen in a long time. But he would have had to have an immaculate season to win the Heisman. Yeah, he's got Notre Dame, but still, they would have had to run the table and make the playoffs, and that's out. You can't have a 3-pick game and lose in one of the big games. So Hartman's out. And I like him. I think Hartman's good. He ran that goofy offense at Wake Forest, but it was effective for him. They beat Florida State, I'm pretty sure. Maybe a couple times, but they beat Notre Dame. Louisville beat Notre Dame 33-20 yesterday. Utah State, who the Hawkeyes played the first game of the year, beat Colorado State 44-24. Wyoming beat number 24 Fresno State 24-19. That was Fresno State's first loss of the year. Georgia Tech, Miami. I'm sure you've seen it by now if you're watching this show. Georgia Tech ended up winning 23-20. All Miami had to do was kneel the ball. Georgia Tech had 1 timeout, I believe. And they didn't do that. If they would have done that, they would have won the game. Instead, they ran the ball. Looked like the runner's elbow was down. Clearly, it wasn't reviewed. He fumbled. Georgia Tech recovered, threw a pass that was just terrible coverage. It was a good catch. They got up to the line, ran another play. Haynes King scrambles around. Somehow a receiver gets behind 3 different defenders for Miami, catches a long pass. Georgia Tech wins 23-20. Cristobal is getting crucified by college football fans around the country, and rightfully so. I mean, it's just, you just can't do that. That was Miami's first loss of the year. They were number 17. Way overrated, in my opinion. I think a lot of people's opinion. They did not deserve to be up there. They'll get knocked down quite a ways, I think. And then they've got a tough part of their schedule coming up. We'll see if they're good, a top 25 team, or if it was all noise and they are who we thought they are. Florida State gets them at home, I believe. They've got a really good schedule this year. They go to Florida, but they get Miami at home. Game's always tough, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Boise State beat San Jose State 35-27. Iowa State beat TCU pretty handedly, 27-14. Both of those teams are 3-3. Texas Tech beat Baylor 39-14. Baylor is now 2-4. Texas Tech is 3-3. Oregon State beat Cal 52-40. Wow. Oregon State is 5-1 and number 15 in the country. USC needed 3 overtimes to beat Arizona 43-41, moving USC to 6-0, and they are number 9 in the country, or they were. I watched the first half of that game. Arizona was playing them tough. Quarterback made some terrible, a couple really bad decisions that cost him some points, but overall, he played a really good game. As I say that, the Arizona quarterback had 303 yards and 5 touchdowns. So clearly, I don't know what I'm talking about. He had an outstanding game, clearly, but the couple plays I saw really hurt them, and you can't take anything away because he had a great game. 5 touchdowns speaks for itself. But anyway, USC ekes one out at home against Arizona, 43-41. What's the matter with, I don't know if anybody follows USC or knows what's going on with that Zacharias Branch kid. I think that's his name, that freshman, number 1. He hasn't played in a few weeks. He's really, really good. I'm assuming he's injured. I just didn't know the extent of it, if anybody knows. Oklahoma State beat K-State 29-21. I think that was like Thursday or Friday. Nebraska beat Illinois 20-7. Liberty beat Sam Houston 21-16. Sam Houston is 0-5 on the year. Liberty is 5-0. Western Kentucky beat Louisiana Tech 35-28. Jacksonville State beat Middle Tennessee 45-30, and New Mexico State beat Florida International 34-17. That's what's going on. Let's see what's going on next week. Next week, we got Louisiana Tech at Middle Tennessee on Tuesday. Also on Tuesday, we got Coastal Carolina versus App State. Also on Tuesday, we have Liberty versus Jacksonville State. On Wednesday, we have UTEP versus Florida International. Wednesday, we have Sam Houston versus New Mexico State. Maybe Sam Houston can get that first victory. On Thursday, we have West Virginia at Houston. And SMU versus East Carolina. On Friday, we have Tulane versus Memphis. And Fresno State versus Utah State. And Stanford at Colorado at 9 p.m. on Friday. Stanford is terrible. And then Saturday, we open up with Arkansas at Alabama, Syracuse at Florida State at 11 a.m. I'm okay with that. Georgia Southern at James Madison, Indiana at Michigan. Michigan is 34-point favorites over Indiana. Iowa State heads out to Cincinnati to play the Bearcats. That'll be interesting. Kent State goes to Eastern Michigan. Michigan State goes to Rutgers. Ohio State travels to Purdue. Temple plays North Texas. Georgia goes to Vanderbilt, where they are 31.5-point favorites. Navy goes to Charlotte. Toledo goes to Ball State. Cal goes to Utah. Akron goes to Central Michigan. Bowling Green goes to Buffalo. BYU goes to TCU. Florida Atlantic goes to South Florida. Florida goes to South Carolina. Illinois goes to Maryland and is going to get mollywopped by the Terrapins. Kansas goes to Oklahoma State. Miami, Ohio goes to Western Michigan. Oregon goes to Washington at 2:30 on ABC. Oregon goes to Washington. Number 8, Oregon. Number 7, Washington. Wow. Big game there, obviously. I like Oregon a little better than Washington in terms of who I think will win that game. I've seen Michael Penix, however you say his name. I've seen him against Iowa's defense, and Iowa, I want to say this is right. He might have got injured in the game, so he didn't play a lot, but he didn't play all that well against a really disciplined defense, a swarming defense, but I could be wrong. Troy goes to Army. Texas A&M goes to Tennessee. UMass goes to Penn State, where they are 43-point underdogs. Penn State's going to be beating them by 42 at halftime. Wake Forest goes to Virginia Tech. Iowa goes to Wisconsin, where Wisconsin is 9.5-point favorites. Wow. No respect to Iowa, which is fine. I mean, that's accurate. That's why Vegas knows what they're doing. They're also trying to get people to bet a lot more money, so they're going to put that out there. But 9.5 points to Wisconsin. Ohio goes to Northern Illinois. UNLV goes to Nevada. San Jose travels to New Mexico. Louisville, who looked really good and moved up to number 14, goes to Pittsburgh. They look really good. Arizona travels to Washington State. It's an interesting game. I like Arizona's quarterback. Auburn travels to LSU. K-State goes to Texas Tech. Louisiana Monroe goes to Texas State. Marshall goes to Georgia State. Wyoming goes to Air Force. Miami goes to North Carolina, 6:30 p.m. Oh, North Carolina beats the shit out of Miami. Missouri goes to Kentucky. That's an interesting game. Kentucky coming off of getting whooped by Georgia, 51-13, I think. Missouri coming off a heartbreak to LSU at home. USC travels to Notre Dame, 6:30. I like Notre Dame in that just because USC's defense is so bad. Their offense can score a gazillion points, but their defense is pitiful. Plus, I think Notre Dame is pissed off by getting smacked around by Louisville, and they're going to be at home. That's a big game. NC State goes to Duke. Alabama Birmingham goes to Texas San Antonio. UCLA goes to Oregon State. UCLA is 18th and Oregon State is 15th. Boise State goes to Colorado State. And San Diego State plays Hawaii. It starts at 10 p.m. Some good games next week. Yeah, look for the new podcast being up in a week or so. My first one with Jerry. I got to get off of here and do some homework because it's coming around at 10 a.m. is when I'm going over to his place to interview him. Hope it's a good one. It's my very first one. It's his very first one too. So give us some slack and we'll try and make it better, ask better questions, but we're just having fun with it too. It's nothing serious. Anyway, We'll see you guys later.